So I've actually written an article for this talk, so I'll be mostly following that. I'll be adding some things. For those of you who have read it, it'll be mostly the same. Right, so the title is Connecting Buddhism with Modern Psychotherapy. In this presentation, I aim to connect two traditions that have been very influential in relieving suffering: Buddhism and modern psychotherapy. I shall discuss them in terms of aim. Number one, aim and effectiveness. So two things I'll discuss together quite quickly. And then I'll talk about approach. Now, in doing so, I shall show that they share what they share and also point out where they differ. So, yeah, things that they are the same and things that are not the same. However, the most significant thing that I shall share, the way I shall connect the two is to show that the two traditions have far more agreements than most people think. Like people think, well, Buddhism is long time ago, modern psychotherapy, that's quite recent, should be quite different, and then also they came from different places. But actually, they do have a lot in agreement. In fact, they agree so much that I have conveniently drawn up a framework by which the two can learn from each other and therefore improve each one's own knowledge in the work of relieving suffering. Right, okay, firstly, I'm going to go to aim and effectiveness. Let's see me try to, okay, it's better. Right now, while Buddhism and modern psychotherapy share the aim of relieving suffering, both of them are for the purpose of relieving suffering. I think we can accept that. We all can see that. But the key difference between the two is the extent and the permanency of that relief. How far do they go and how permanent are they? Like Sigmund Freud, you may have heard of Sigmund Freud. He famously said that the aim of psychoanalysis is to relieve people of their neurotic unhappiness so that they can be normally happy. Now, when I first came across this, I was quite impressed actually. I thought, now, that's interesting. Freud also acknowledges that people are normally unhappy. People are normally unhappy. That's something that Freud also acknowledged. So I was quite impressed by that fact. And but that's more than 100 years ago, talking about what psychoanalysis can do. Nowadays, psychotherapy can do much better because it can now relieve people of lesser unhappiness. Like, for example, if you're stressed over losing your job, you don't have to be neurotically unhappy. If you are stressed over losing your hair, you can also go to a psychotherapist for help, whatever kind of stress. However, it still aims at achieving normal unhappiness. And normal unhappiness is something that you come across if you learn psychotherapy, or ordinary suffering. Let me change something here. How come I can't remove my phone view? Okay, this better. Okay, now once psychotherapy has achieved this normal unhappiness for the patient, the job is considered done. They're finished. The therapist has finished the job, and the therapy ends. So now, and then the effect of the therapy may last for a long time, or it may last just for a short while. But even if it lasts for a long while, it's not meant to be permanent, because modern psychotherapy does not aim to remove the underlying tendencies to recreate suffering. Now, let me give you an example. So let's say you go to a therapist for depression, and through the therapy, you're off depression, you're okay now. But that doesn't mean that you will not get depression in the future, because the underlying tendencies for recreating depression is still there. All right. So now Buddhism has a far more loftier aim, that is permanent freedom from all suffering. which means it aims to remove the underlying tendencies as well. However, in reality, it mostly hasn't been that successful. Actually, to be truthful about the situation is that Buddhism hasn't been very successful in removing the underlying tendencies. It has been successful for some people, but for most people, they've come to Buddhism and they have not actually gone far in relieving themselves of suffering. That's the reality. And in fact, I'm understating here. Even Buddhist teachers, some Buddhist teachers do seek therapeutic help to achieve normal unhappiness. Okay, now let's go to approach. Now, in modern psychotherapy, now there's something called the third wave or the new wave. Yeah, and what has been called the new wave or the third wave has been an exciting development in modern psychotherapy. And it has brought its effectiveness to heights that it has never seen before. Now, these therapies include modalities such as ACT, DBT, and MBCT. If you don't know these abbreviations, it's okay. These are new modalities in psychotherapy that has included a new thing called mindfulness. And as you know, mindfulness came from Buddhism. So now before that, all well-regarded modalities have already shared two components, that is cognitive and behavioral. I'll show you what they are later on. Cognitive and behavioral. Now with the cognitive component in, behavioral component in, and then mindfulness in. Now, Buddhism and modern psychotherapy share three components. In other words, modern psychotherapy now has all the three components of Buddhist practice. Let me show you something. Okay, everybody see this? Yeah, all right. Now I'll let you look at this for a while. Let it sink in first. Now, of course, they are still far from the same. Yeah, I have the correct mathematical symbol in the middle there. Right, this is similar. It's still far from the same, but the parallelism between the two is striking. So, like the first one, the first row, the cognitive component of psychotherapy is about the way we think. When you go to a therapist, it's about changing the way thinking patterns that are inaccurate or distorted are looked into, and the aim is to bring about change in these thinking patterns. And in other words, to get you to see things in the right way. And that reminds me of the Buddhist thinking of to see things according to reality. Let me see. Oh, does this block anything?
Yes, it's a blank screen.
Dark blank. There's a black. There'll be a box in between, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try to do something about this. Okay, this is okay?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Yes.
Okay, now the next part is behavioral. Now, I understand if you look at the word sila and down there, there's the word behavior, you might think, no, sila is not translated as behavior. I'll come to that quickly. Now, the last one, mindfulness. Next to it is samadhi. You might say, okay, this is a bit off, but that's the way in modern psychotherapy, that's how they call the practice. They call mindfulness. They don't call it meditation. I'll explain later. And the samadhi, if you look at the right side, sila, samadhi, panya, that's the standard Buddhist way of referring to the whole training. Now, samadhi, you might look at the word composure and say, no, that's not how we translate the word. But actually, through my research, this is the better word to translate compared to concentration. I translate samadhi to either composure or collectedness. And I have actually written a book on this. I expect to have it released this year, what I would call a public draft. The title of the book is What You Might Not Know About Jhana and Samadhi. I have been allowing the draft to go around the internet for some years already. Ajahn Sumedho has read it, Ajahn Sucitto has read it. Ajahn Sumedho, when I gave it to him, I wasn't so sure whether or not he would respond well to it. I left it with him for a whole year, and I met him again when I met again in Thailand. I said, do you have any anything to say about it? Is it okay? And he looked at me and said, I like it. So I was surprised that he actually liked it very much. Then in this book, I explained why samadhi is not well translated into concentration, that composure is actually a better word. Another word will be collectedness. But the word samadhi is also sometimes has a meaning of meditation. This doesn't occur as much, but this meaning actually is still current in Thailand in the forest tradition, and it also survives in Malay language. If you look into your Kamus Dewan, if you still have it, if you look for the word samadhi, S-E-M-A-D-I, sounds a lot like samadhi, right? So samadhi, the meaning of that word is to meditate. But samadhi, although it also has another meaning, is to be buried. But samadhi, for what we want, the meaning that we want, it is actually meditation. So let me get back here. How do I get back there? All right. Now, granted, how these three are understood in each tradition still differ quite a bit. Yeah, it's not just because they differ in the extent and permanency of relief from suffering. Like Sila in Buddhism is usually translated as you probably know, morality, right? And which is actually a much narrower meaning compared to behavior. However, the basic meaning of this Pali word is actually behavior. If you look at a Pali dictionary, you find a few meanings, including morality, and you also find the word behavior in it. If you know some Pali, you have the word susila, which means good behavior. Dusila is bad behavior. It's not good morality and bad morality. So now, once we take the word behavior as the meaning, then it makes the two the same. Right? At least in the meaning of the word, it makes this meaning of sila the same as the behavioral component of modern psychotherapy. Now, the work of freeing ourselves from suffering, in this work, our change of behavior needs to go beyond the realm of just morality. We can't just think in terms of morality, I just keep my precepts, 5 precepts, I just be a good person, and that's the end of it. No, it doesn't work. If the work is after all an endeavor for freedom, not a religious devotion. I'll give you a good example. Now, doing things for others, that cannot be considered immoral, right? Doing things for others, I mean, how is that immoral? Why shouldn't we stop doing that? But for people who are suffering from issues of submissiveness, they submit themselves, they sacrifice themselves. For these people, if they want to stop suffering from this, they need to stop doing things for others when it's actually sacrificing their own needs. Like there are some people who just have difficulty not putting others before them. And because they keep putting others before them, they keep sacrificing themselves, and actually inside themselves, they are angry and sad for not being able to stop. Because these are the people who can't say no, what you might call the people pleasers. They can't stop pleasing others, and they don't please themselves instead. And they're stuck in this situation, they are unhappy, but they can't get out. So for these people, actually, for them to be free, they need to see when they do things for others, is it actually sacrificing their own needs? And they actually do that a lot. And if they can see that, they have to monitor that and stop that. If they don't do that, they cannot free themselves from this pattern. And don't think that they are just sacrificing themselves and that's all. They can actually get very angry for others not giving them appreciation and not understanding themselves, not understanding them. So it's actually a very unhappy situation to be in. Yeah. So for Sila, just limiting ourselves to moral behavior is not enough. We need to stop and sometimes even start doing certain things. And all these come under behavior. Now, Sila, again, means behavior. Now, okay, I'll go on to meditation. Now, just now I mentioned about meditation. The word samadhi can sometimes be translated as meditation. Now, modern psychotherapy in general appears to have mixed opinions about Buddhist meditation. Just now I mentioned about the third wave modalities. They have gone as far as to making mindfulness a core component. But although this is true, the larger part of modern psychotherapy is wary about meditation as a whole. Some speaks of its dark side, and some even say it's dangerous. Now, most often it's regarded as spiritual bypassing. Now, spiritual bypassing is a term introduced by a psychotherapist and a Buddhist teacher by the name of John Welwood. Spiritual bypassing, that means you, instead of facing your suffering, you use some kind of spiritual means to avoid having to meet them. The word bypassing may not be a very accurate term. It's more like spiritual escapism to me. Yeah. So John Welwood is a psychotherapist and Buddhist teacher who noticed this phenomena and coined this term, spiritual bypassing. You can find this on the internet. Now, while there seems to be a conflict somewhere here, actually there is none. Let me quote a highly respected Buddhist teacher, Ajahn Chah. Okay, I'm going to read out a quote by Ajahn Chah here. That which can be most harmful to the meditator is absorption samadhi. The samadhi with deep, sustained calm. This samadhi brings great peace. Where there is peace, there is happiness. When there is happiness, attachment and clinging to that happiness arise. The meditator doesn't want to contemplate anything else. He just wants to indulge in that pleasant feeling. When we have been practicing for a long time, we may become adept at entering this samadhi very quickly. As soon as we start to note our meditation object, the mind enters calm, and we don't want to come out to investigate anything. We just get stuck on that happiness. This is a danger to one who is practicing meditation. Now, this is from a book by Ajahn Chah. Well, Ajahn Chah never wrote any book, he just taught. But it's been transcribed and it's translated to English in a book called A Taste for Freedom. You can, of course, also find this in his collected teachings. This quote also is found in many places on the internet. Now, so with this, you can see an agreement between the two traditions, can you? Now, understand if some Buddhists reading the above may squirm in their seats asking, Ajahn Chah said, what? Ajahn Chah said, that's dangerous? Yes, he said that, although, of course, he didn't say in English. That's translated. The fact is that there are Buddhists, including Ajahn Chah, who regard absorption practice to be harmful. And generally, modern psychotherapists agree. When they regard meditation as harmful, this is what they're referring to. Right? So that's for meditation. Now let's go to the last one, wisdom. When it comes to wisdom, Buddhism often speaks of high ideals, such as becoming enlightened. However, for the most part, it lacks wisdom in dealing with common psychological suffering, such as inferiority complex and depression. This kind of suffering is what people are most desiring freedom from, and that modern psychotherapy in general deals with far better. Take, for example, someone who was sexually abused as a child and has become constantly wary of men. If a person has been sexually abused as a child long enough, they become very, very careful about men, right? And so thinking that, no, these people can't be trusted. Nobody, all these men, the woman would find all these men can't be trusted. Do we then tell her that, oh, it's just wrong perception and that you just need to know it as it is, and the mind will let go of the perception? Now, I don't want to say that has zero chance of working, but I do think that the chance of working is close to as 0% as you can possibly get. What takes to guide her, what takes to help her is that there takes a lot of wisdom to systematically guide her to reassess the perception so that she can see how it's not true. Now, seeing that is a kind of wisdom, which then naturally brings about the letting go. And this is done as part of the cognitive component of modern psychotherapy. Some years ago, I noticed modern psychotherapy adopting another thing from Buddhism, that is telling patients to regard feelings as just feelings and thoughts as just thoughts. Now, this, for people who have been practicing meditation, you probably recognize this as a quite common thing that Buddhist teachers tell you, to see feelings as just feelings, thoughts as just thoughts. And this has been adopted in modern psychotherapy. And actually, this is part of right view, which is part of the wisdom component of Buddhism. So you'll find that modern psychotherapy has been stealing a lot from Buddhism. And don't you think we should steal some things back? Yeah, they're doing all things from us, we should take something back from them, if it's useful. Yeah. Now, the next thing I want to say is about learning from each other. Actually, to improve, we should learn from each other. Trying to find out everything on our own is not so intelligent and not effective. Buddhists learn from Buddhists, right? Yeah, and therapists learn from therapists. And psychotherapy has learned from Buddhism, most significantly mindfulness. So why not Buddhism learn from psychotherapy too? Why not? Some Buddhists may say, well, they learn from us because we know better. We Buddhism, we have a higher technology, right? So why should we learn from others? Right? Others learn from us, that makes sense. We learn from others, no, that doesn't make sense. I think this claim that we know better is worth looking into, especially the we part. What do we mean by we here? When we say Buddhism, we are being general. There are many kinds, actually there are many kinds of Buddhisms. In fact, as many as there are Buddhists. For every Buddhist, there is a Buddhism, because every Buddhist understands Buddhism differently. So your Buddhism, my Buddhism isn't the same. So it's the same as psychotherapists. They understand and practice psychotherapy differently too. Even if they are within, they practice the same kind of psychotherapy. Ultimately, they don't understand it exactly the same way. So back to Buddhists, when two Buddhists categorically disagree, which happens a lot, especially if you are in the world of meditation, right? Now, when the two Buddhists categorically disagree, one of them must be wrong, if not both. So who do we mean by we? And we Buddhists need to admit that we don't have the Buddha's understanding. Right? We don't have the Buddha's understanding. We don't all share the Buddha's understanding. If you share the Buddha's understanding, we are all arahants. So since we are not arahants, I know I'm not. Since we are not arahants, so we should admit that, and we don't have the full understanding of the Dhamma. We need to admit that some of what the Buddha taught is lost in history. I dare say that some circles of Buddhists even have serious misunderstanding of what the Buddha taught. Yeah. Now we are lucky enough, although it's part of it is lost in history. I think we are lucky enough that Buddhism still has much of what the Buddha taught. I would say maybe 80%. Yeah, and we also have stuff that he didn't teach. Like for example, the Buddha did not teach all-night chanting. Okay, the Buddha did not teach all-night chanting. Once I was in an all-night chanting thing, and Before all night was over, the hall was empty. Everybody disappeared. People didn't want to do it. And the Buddha didn't teach that either. Yeah, but then we have it in Buddhism now. Now, without going into details of what he taught and what he didn't teach, now how do we as Buddhists decide which is which? This is important. How do we decide what the Buddha taught and what the Buddha didn't teach? Or we could say what is the Dhamma and what not the Dhamma. So for me, it is very simple. If you want to know which is which, we should just go by principles of the universal Dhamma. Now remember, the Dhamma is not the same as Buddhism. I repeat, the Dhamma is not the same as Buddhism. Remember, just now I said everybody has their own Buddhism. Yeah. So now if everybody has their own Buddhism, we don't say everybody has their own Dhamma. The Dhamma is one universal Dhamma. It does not, if it's a Dhamma, it's a Dhamma. It doesn't go according to what we think, right? Like for example, craving causes suffering. It doesn't matter what you think, craving still causes suffering, right? So now, how then do we know what's Dhamma? The Buddha is simply practicing the Dhamma and suffering. Practicing the Dhamma and suffering. So now does our understanding and practice help us to end suffering? If yes, then for our own good, we should follow that. We should live engaging in those understanding and practices. If no, then for our own good, we should abandon them. This is according to Kalama Sutta. So now, okay, here's something that you have to consider. Now, so if an approach found in modern psychotherapy can solve a suffering, then our current approach, I'm talking about your Buddhism, not the Buddha's teaching, okay? I'm talking about your Buddhism. Now, if an approach found in modern psychotherapy can solve a suffering that your current approach cannot, or our approach cannot, then why not learn from them? Why not learn from psychotherapy? After all, if it does end suffering, it must be going by principles of Dhamma. Again, the Dhamma is not Buddhism. Huh? The Dhamma is Dhamma. Whether there is Buddhism or not, the Dhamma is there. If it does end suffering, it must be going by principles of the Dhamma. Now, for example, I'll give you an example. One of the things that is commonly practiced for people who have a sense of inferiority, they feel that they are no good, they are inferior, they are not good enough, they feel ashamed of themselves, they feel inferior. Now, what do you do about that? In modern psychotherapy, one of the things that's done is to assess it, meaning to say, well, why not take a look at your good points? Why not look into the good points, write them down, and look at your bad points, write them down. And for people who are in this situation, once they they have difficulty writing writing down the good points. When it comes to writing down the bad points, they explode. Boom! They get a big, long list. So usually that's not encouraged first. Just do the good points first. Now you might be interested to know that this is actually found in Buddhism, but rarely talked about. Ajahn Chah, you probably heard of Ajahn Sumedho. Yeah, Ajahn Sumedho. Now Ajahn Chah, when Ajahn Sumedho was a young monk, Ajahn Chah asked him to contemplate on his virtues. Because Ajahn Sumedho was a person who was who didn't think much of himself. He thought lowly of himself. So his teacher, Ajahn Chah, saw that in him and asked him to contemplate on his virtues. And he thought, okay, should not be a problem. Okay, I'll do that. So he went to his kuti, to his hut, and he thought about his virtues. And he thought and thought and thought, nothing came out. He couldn't think of anything good about himself. It was so difficult. He was shocked. How come I can't think of anything good about myself? But Ajahn Chah gave him the homework, so he tried very hard. Eventually, he arrived at one. Okay, I've arrived into a place. I arrived in a place where people are trying to cultivate themselves and be better. At least that's a good point, right? That's the first thing that he found. It was so difficult for him. Interestingly, I also found that in the suttas, one of the things to contemplate on when you have difficulty meditating, if you are trying to meditate, you're trying to be aware, you watch your body sensations or your feelings or whatever before establishments of mindfulness. If you find that you can't do that, your mind keep running here and there, or some funny thing happens, you just can't practice. One of the things that is recommended is to reflect on your own two things that is relevant here, to reflect on your good behavior and to reflect on your generosity. And now that to me is very relevant, very closely related. Now, when you think of what good you have, you feel happier, your mind calms down. It's very close to what's available in modern psychotherapy. So you'll find that actually there's a lot of similarities that we if you just take time to look into them, there's just so much of them. Now remember, we take refuge in the Dhamma. Buddhists take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, right? You know that. Now we take refuge in the Dhamma, we don't take refuge in Buddhism. In our heads, we have a Buddhism. That's not the refuge that we take in. Taking refuge in that Buddhism is just taking refuge in your own views, your own ideas. When we take refuge in the Dhamma, we are taking refuge in something that helps us to be free from suffering, and that may not agree with our views. This is very important. This is very important. And we take refuge for the sake of freedom, not for religious devotion. Now, it's not a faith thingy. It's for freedom. So if an approach does end suffering, it must be going by the principles of the Dhamma. And to that, we take refuge. In other words, we take refuge in the path towards our freedom, not in our own views. Now, the table shown earlier is actually a basic framework. Maybe I'll just show it again quickly. This is a basic framework by which Buddhism and modern psychotherapy can refer to try to compare these two and to see whether or not we might have something that is incomplete on one side, and perhaps something that we find, okay, over here, this doesn't seem to work so well. Maybe I could look over the other side and see what I can learn from the other side and pick from that. This is actually a very convenient framework. So, like for example, now just now I talked about in feeling inferior, right? Now, so in relation to that, let's say for behavioral change, do you put down others to make yourself feel better? Do you ever find yourself doing that? You criticize others, and then when you criticize others, you feel better. Okay, maybe you Buddhists don't do that lah. Yeah, but some people do, and maybe sometimes it's not like you deliberately criticize somebody in front of them. Maybe gossip. You talk bad about others with your friends, and after talking, and then, well, I see all these people, they all know good one. We are the best people in the whole world. Yeah, you feel like you're a bit higher than others, and you feel good about yourself. This is similar, although you don't say it in front of them. Now, do you do that kind of thing to compensate a sense of inferiority within you, or a sense of defectiveness? Do you know that to be free from this sense of inferiority, you need to stop this behavior of putting down others. Because actually this behavior is preventing you from feeling that sense of inferiority. If you can't feel it, you can't heal it. You can't heal what you can't feel. About the need to stop this behavior, I learned this from something called schema therapy, which I like very, very much. Schema therapy is the therapy which from modern psychotherapy that I have looked into the most. Yeah, I like this very much. We need to be able to feel what we want to heal in the right way. In Buddhism, we talk about having the right view and right attitude, meaning to say, you don't see it as yours, you just see it as just something. Just like just now mentioned, to see feeling as feeling, thoughts as thoughts, not as something that is yours, as personal. And to have right attitude, meaning to say, not trying to push it away, trying to get rid of it. You're not even trying to tell yourself these are just feelings and thoughts just to push it away. No, we're not trying to rationalize it away. You're not trying to use some kind of method to method it away or technique away. No, we are just really, really seeing things as they are. Feelings are just feelings, thoughts and just thoughts. And if you are still behaving in a way that doesn't allow you to feel that, then there's no way to be free. So therefore, to be free, stopping this behavior is necessary. And stopping this behavior is not a matter of morality. It's a matter of your own freedom. So this is the behavioral change that's necessary for the sake of your own freedom. It's not a morality, it's not a moral issue. Yeah. So now let me end by saying this. There's a lot that we can do to improve by being willing to learn from each other. And with that, we can all improve on the effectiveness of our work for freedom. So my question is just this, why not? So why not? Okay, so that's all for me for this talk. We can move on to Q&A now. What makes a person feel inferior? Usually this comes from your childhood. Although I say usually it's probably 100%. Yeah, it comes from childhood. If certain things in your childhood made you believe that you are inferior, it gets stuck in the head. And once you believe that you're no good, you're just not good enough, you are Chinese, there's a very horrible term, 赔钱货. You know, you're rookie, you know, to feed you is actually is a loss. Yeah, if your parents say such a thing to you, a child, even if you're an adult, if somebody says such a thing to you, you feel bad, right? Yeah. Even as an adult, if somebody will say very demeaning things to you, feel bad. How does a child feel? And if you repeat that enough towards a child, you believe it. And once they believe that they're no good, it's very, very difficult for them to change. And they will reject anything that is in conflict with this belief. It's like that. When we cling on to a belief, we will, even if clinging on to that belief creates a lot of suffering for us, we will cling on to that and we'll reject anything that disagrees with that. This is the power of clinging. This is the craziness of delusion. Yeah, it doesn't care. Defilements don't care if you suffer. It just does its job. Yeah. So once the mind believes in something, it holds on to it and rejects anything that disagrees with it. So, like for example, say I remember myself when this is like maybe about 20 years ago. If somebody were to praise me, like I was already a monk 20 years ago, yeah, two years as a monk. So if I gave a Dhamma talk, and somebody came to me and say, "Oh, Bhante, you gave a very good Dhamma talk." So that's a praise, right? I should feel good, right? What happens is that inside me, there'll be something that resists that. It will go. outwardly I may say thank you, but inside there's something that resists that. Have you ever felt that before? Somebody praises you, and inside you, there's something that will fight it. It doesn't care. And sometimes what people do is that they can't say thank you even. They say, no lah, no, not really lah. And then that person feel like after I praise you something, you took my praise and throw into the drain. So that's the power of this clinging. It doesn't care. It'll just hold on. Yeah. So this, once you have that belief as a child, it may not be from your parents. It could be because of the way you look, and maybe you look a bit rather different from the rest of the friends, and people tease you. Oh, you also have that thing in you. There are a few possibilities for that. Sometimes it could even be your parents arguing a lot. I find this situation, I find this happening too. Parents who argue a lot, the child feels somehow responsible for that. The child feels like, oh, maybe it's me, there's something wrong, something bad about me. I can't fix this problem. My parent keeps arguing and there's something wrong about me. Yeah, I should be able to help them not argue, but I can't do that. They keep arguing, and the child would form this belief. If you're interested to know, you look up something called Reinventing Your Life. It's a very, very good book, Reinventing Your Life. It's a self-help book. I think so highly of this book that if you are going to read only one self-help book in the market, if you're only going to read just one, I'll suggest this one. This is how greatly I think of it. Yeah. If there's only one self-help book that you're going to read, this is the one I suggest. How can reflection on one's good behavior and generosity help to reduce wandering thoughts during meditation, as mentioned by Bhante? If I do that during meditation, wouldn't I be thinking even more? Okay, here's a common misunderstanding about meditation, that you should not think. That's the belief that the Buddha did not teach. The Buddha did not teach that in meditation, you try to empty your mind, don't think. That's not how the Buddha taught it. Now, if your samadhi, if your composure has reached a certain stage where the mind simply doesn't want to think, it's so quiet, doesn't want to think, that's natural. But that's not something I try to create. In fact, in the beginning, as my meditation teacher often reminds beginners, think. You need to think, but you think correctly. Don't think wrongly. You need to think, you need to use your mind to think correctly, because otherwise you'll be thinking all the useless stuff. You'll be occupied by all the negative thoughts. So you need to think correctly first. You take this power back from the defilements first, and the right thinking will bring about awareness, will bring about composure, and then the mind will come down. Once the mind comes down, it just doesn't feel like thinking. And it's not like you can't think. If you want to think, you can. If you don't want to think, it just stops. There's so much mastery over the mind at that time. Yeah, it's very, very peaceful, very, very nice. But it doesn't mean meditation is like, don't think, don't think, don't think. That's not correct. If you can use some thinking to help your mind to what's the right word at the beginning, to steady your mind, to let your mind settle down, and use some right thinking, then you do that. So that's why you have reflections on the Buddha, on the Dhamma and Sangha. But you're thinking, those are thinking. Yeah, like for example, when you're trying to meditate and then you remind yourself of what the Buddha taught, that's still thinking. Or remind yourself of what the teacher taught. Okay, all right, okay, feel the body. How does the body feel now? This is thinking. This is thinking. This is right thinking. Yeah, you're not thinking nonsense. You're using thinking to help you to pay attention. Right thinking. Yeah. Seeing things according to reality to begin with is very, very simple. Can you feel your body now?
Yeah.
Okay, feel it.
Body.
Just feel your body as it is right now.
Hmm.
Now, you don't have to answer my question here. I'll be asking a question, some questions. You just let the question lead you to pay attention. So how does the body feel now? Yeah. How does it feel now?
Thinking.
How does it feel as you breathe in and out? You don't have to answer this question. How does the body feel as you breathe in and out? Does it feel tense? Can you feel the tension as you breathe in and out? And as you do so, does the tension get less? And less? And as the body tension get less, do you find your mind calmer? So how do you feel now? You can answer this question.
I want me to ask, to answer.
No, you don't have, yeah. How do you feel now?
How do I feel? You say I just follow according to what. If I say like my mind think breathe, then like maybe it's breathing or my mind have the interaction or my mind interaction and then the breath come in. Like the mind and the body is working together. Yeah.
So this one, when you see, you can feel and all that, you're not trying to add anything to it. Yeah. When you feel your body, how it feels like, you're not adding to say, oh, this is good, this is bad, or whatever. You're not adding anything to it. This is what we mean by seeing things as they are.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. Because you're not saying, oh, this is a good feeling, or this is a bad feeling, or this means that I am what. No, you don't even think, oh, I feel very tense. You just notice there is tension.
Okay.
Just there is tension. It feels like this. You're not trying to make it go away. You're not trying to say that this is tension is good or bad, or even my tension. Just see tension as tension. And then when you see it lessen, then you just recognize that it has lessened. And also you understand why it is less. Why is it less? So then you can understand the situation and understand yourself better. You know, the whole practice meditation is for the sake of understanding yourself. Okay?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Learning a lot from you.
All right, thank you. You're welcome. Do you find that maybe what you do something, you work very hard on something, and then maybe somebody else gets credit for it?
Yes, sometimes, most of the time.
Yeah. When that such things happen, do you do anything about it?
I can't really can do anything, right?
Do you actually say something to voice out, to tell your boss, actually, I'm the one who did this?
I don't claim, actually.
So I would like to encourage that you do it.
Because I have this belief that if you're doing something good and it is worth to be recognized, then they will be recognized.
Yeah.
It is not something for you to speak out for them to realize about what you are doing.
Yes, but your boss is not psychic.
Maybe, yes. Yeah.
Maybe it's not psychic. Huh?
Or maybe he knows, but I'm just thinking maybe the way we expressed or may not be at the right moment.
And maybe not.
Yeah.
Look, to you say it's unfair, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
It's unfair, right? So why not do something about it so it's fair?
So the idea is to speak up
Yes.
or continue doing so that it'll be seen and recognized.
You have been doing that, continuing doing to be seen, but you're not seen, you're not recognized, and you're not speaking out. You're just keeping quiet, and somebody talk very loudly like, oh, I'm the one who did all these things. Yeah, they didn't do much, but then they are the one who talked the loudest, and they are the one who did it. If you yourself, you feel that this is not fair, it could happen, it could be you who's not fairly being unfairly treated, it could be somebody else. If you see the unfairness and you don't talk about it, then you're not helping to change the situation. Yeah.
Understood.
Now, let me tell you, this is actually about behavior. This is right speech. Right speech is not keeping quiet. Right speech is not no speech. Right speech is right speech, to say things that needs to be said. And right action is not no action, it's to do things that needs to be done, besides not doing certain things. If you think certain things should be known, then make that known. Now, I know this is difficult for you. It is not easy for you. Yeah. But this is something that we need to work on. I recently, one of my students sending me a message through Facebook and giving me a report about what she did recently, because I gave her a homework actually to say things that needs to be said. So there was once that there was certain things happening, and then she felt that she should say something, and she was actually feeling a lot of tension, like she's afraid of saying it, but she felt that that thing needs to be said, and she said it. And amazingly, she said, wow, things turned out very, very well. And then after that, of course, after saying, she went, oh. But she was very, very happy that things turned out very, very well, beyond her expectation. She didn't think that just saying that could be actually work out so well. You don't know. I saw another student a long time ago. She also keeps quiet, and then once during a meeting, she voiced out certain things. She felt something wasn't done very right, and she gave a suggestion, which she never did before that. Not normal for her. So when she said something, everybody paid attention. And after she said that, and the boss came to her later on, you should say more next time. You need to practice this. This is right speech, to say what needs to be said. Because if you don't, what happens is that you build up an anger inside you. Correct? I would like you to recognize how you feel. You know, our unhappy feelings are great motivators. If we only work at the level of thinking, we don't have much motivation. We need to touch here. It's not comfortable, but we need to touch it. We need to recognize, we need to feel, we need to experience what's here. How do you feel about this? You're not being recognized. People are saying things as if like, you're taking all the credit. Nobody knows. Like it's like you are visible, although you did a lot of work. How do you feel about that? I believe you're a good person. And I believe that you like to think of yourself as a good person. And for you, a good person is like this, that. A good person, for example, does not talk about her good points. A good person will not try to tell people that they did something good. Others are supposed to notice. You have a lot of ideas about what a good person is. And those ideas are keeping you in that situation. You're clinging to some views of what a good person should be, and you want to be that, that is actually your ego. Your ego is keeping you in your unhappiness. Your ego is not you.
Okay.
It's keeping you in your unhappiness. You want to be a good person, but this good person is unhappy. And if this good person wants to be happy, this good person needs to give up those ideas of what a good person is and do what's right for you. If you're not willing to do that, then you stay in this situation. There's no freedom. You can still remain to be that good person that you think you want to be, your idea of a good person, but it's a very suffering good person. Do you need to be that? Do you need to be this good person who is suffering? Is that what you want to be for the rest of your life? How long more do you want to stay here? So when are you going to change? How long, many more years do you want to stay in this situation? To me, whatever the situation, yes, we accept. This is the situation. And once we accept the mind is calm, it's more peaceful, then wisdom can work to think what's the best thing to do, if there's anything to do. That's the way, that's why we had birthday. Birthday was not formed by people who are what they call talking angry words on the internet. It is founded by people who thought clearly and found a way. They didn't just accept the situation, they acted. If we don't accept things, of course we get angry, and then wisdom doesn't work. Yeah. So we accept the situation first, and we recognize what is right and what is wrong. And we recognize what can be done about the situation. And if there's something that we ourselves can do, we act. That is wisdom. That is right action. Acceptance doesn't mean, oh, okay, yeah, it's like that, know what to do. Maybe a bad karma, That's the wrong kind of acceptance. That is actually avoidance. That's not acceptance. You're avoiding doing what needs to be done. It doesn't matter to me whether or not you change. It doesn't matter to me. That's your business, not mine. But it matters to you. So the question eventually is this: have you suffered enough to be willing to change?
Okay.
If you have not, then it's not something you can do about even, actually. The only thing you can do is to notice that you do suffer more, to recognize more of that. When you recognize enough of that, then the mind may have the motivation, to have the push to make you say what you need to say. Until then, it's okay. You don't have to do anything about it. But what I encourage you to do at this point is to admit, is to recognize that you are suffering in this situation and that actually you do want change. So much so that you want to leave the company. You're thinking about it. Okay. Actually, the right thing to say is not Buddhism emphasize on non-self. The understanding of non-self or not-self is actually quite profound. It's not something that you can understand just on an intellectual level. It's something to be known directly for yourself. Yeah, it's possible. Yes, it's possible to do that through the practice. But in order to free yourself from that sense of inferiority, you need to know yourself and not to try to have a sense of non-self. Yeah, to know yourself means to say, okay, I talked about earlier on to see your good points. Yeah, and it actually involves a lot of things, and it's not something that you can just quickly turn around. The sense of inferiority is something that's been established for a long time. It takes years to slowly shape it up. Yeah, but the idea of not self is helpful in the process. Like for example, so when you feel the sense of not being good enough, it's not a pleasant thing to feel. And the idea of not self is helpful, as in to remind yourself, it's just a feeling. Feeling is just a feeling, so that you don't get sucked into that feeling. Thoughts are just thoughts, so that you don't get sucked into those thoughts. Yeah, this idea is helpful, right? But don't jump into that far. Try to jump to the far end. Okay, I don't exist. No, that's not it. Yeah, to say I don't exist is not the right thing. That is just trying to put an idea into something that you don't understand yet. It takes a lot of work, and if you like to work on this, I would suggest really meditation in order to be able to see this pattern, this mental pattern as it is, rather than something that is you. Yeah. For people with this issue, it's like this thing is me. They don't see it as something separate from that. So meditation with right view helps you to see it as something separate. Once you can see it as something separate, it becomes easy to deal with. Yeah, you don't even need to, you don't feel like you need to fight with it. You just recognize it as this, although it's still there. You're not freed from it yet, but to some extent, you are free as when you don't see it as you. Yeah. And I will again also would recommend that book, Reinventing Your Life. There is a chapter called Defectiveness Schema. It's about feeling not good enough. It has, it tells you, it gives you case studies of people with this situation, where it came from, the origin of this, how you behave when you have this, the partners that you tend to get involved with, and at the end, steps to change this this belief. It's quite, it's very structured. It's very not difficult to follow actually. My teacher will teach when you meditate, first thing to do is not try to watch this or that. First thing to do is to check your attitude. What do you want? A lot of people meditate with a lot of craving, a lot of desire for this and that, and then already puts you on the wrong track. Yeah. So by recognizing this happening is meditation. It's already meditation. Recognize that there is this attitude of trying to get something, get somewhere. And when you recognize that, then slowly it calms down. Yeah, this is necessary. And once it calms down, you realize that you don't need to want it. It's already there. In fact, wanting it doesn't allow it to happen. Once you let go of that desire, then the mind is calm. It's opposite of what we normally think. We think that if we want something, then only we can get it. If you want to get something, you must want it a lot, then only you can get it. It's, yes, you might say in the beginning, you need to want something to act, but that one thing is not how you can get it. You don't get something because you want it. You get something because conditions allow you to have it. And so the point is to create those conditions. And one of those conditions is to not crave for it. How do we differentiate being humble, belittle own deeds versus inferiority or conceit? Being humble, belittle own deeds. To belittle your own deeds is not being humble. To belittle anything is not being humble. Belittling is not a positive trait. Yeah. Being humble is a positive trait, yet they are completely different. When you belittle anything, there is already a comparison. there is something better than something else. That's why I can belittle something. Something that's better than something. Yeah. So this is not how this doesn't help us to be free. It just puts us. It actually strengthens the ego still. The ego doesn't necessarily mean pride. It can mean pride. Yeah, but the ego is a sense of self, and once there is a sense of self, there is comparison. I'm better. I'm lesser. Or I'm the same. It has to compare. Yeah, but without this, then there is no comparison. Comparing creates tension. When there is none of this, then you feel very relaxed. Imagine your life not having to compare with anybody at all in the world. Yeah, I don't feel better or worse than anybody. This pattern is out of, it's gone. That's how arahants are. They don't have this sense of self. Yeah, so they're highly relaxed. So it's being belittling anybody's is your own or somebody else's. That's not being humble. If you have done something good, recognize it. You have done something bad, recognize it. That's wisdom. That's not making something higher or less. So you're just recognizing the nature of something, of your deeds. That's wisdom. The truth of it. If it's something right, it's good, you recognize it. If it's not right, then you recognize it. That's wisdom. You're not saying good is better than bad. Yeah, you're just saying that this is the nature of this. And because you recognize, then you know what to do. You know that, okay, so this is, I did this thing. Now, maybe I've done this many times. Recognize that. Then you yourself don't feel good about it. Then you start to think, now, what can I do about this? Yeah, no, that's wisdom. But if you go into, oh, that's so bad, and then you go into criticizing yourself, I'm such a bad person. I keep doing this thing. Why do I always do this? See, I do this again. You see, you're going down a different path. Yeah. So it's very, very different. Recognizing what is what, that's wisdom. When you try to compare, it's a different thing, different animal. So you want to be free from suffering, and I would suggest that you find your way. And that way might be found in some Buddhist book, it might be found in some psychotherapy book, some self-help book in the bookshop. Find your way. Yeah. You might find it in YouTube video. Find your way. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, give it up. If it doesn't work, give it up. Even if you have been following for a long, long while. Even if you think this is Buddhism, this is what the Buddha taught. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Maybe it works for somebody else, good for them. But if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't. Find another way. Yeah. Because you are not doing it out of some kind of religious devotion. You're doing it for your own freedom. It's for your own freedom. You don't owe it to anybody to follow. You don't owe anybody, yeah, to follow anything at all. You owe it to yourself only. Yeah. So maybe you could find in that book what reinventing your life. Maybe you find some meditation retreat, whatever. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, drop it. If it works, continue. If it works, then of course it works. It doesn't matter. If it works, it works. It doesn't matter whether you call it Buddhism, whether you call it psychotherapy, but if it works, it works. Yeah, if it works, it works. So if it works, keep it up, engage in it for your own freedom.